Canby, Oregon. This one might be flying a little bit under the radar. In this video, I'll talk to you about why I think that is, and we'll cover all the pros and cons of living in Canby, Oregon. All that starts now. Hey everyone, Seth Marchant with the Home Team Brokers here, coming to you today from Canby, Oregon. If you're new to this channel, living in Oregon, and you'd like to see a little bit more about what it's like to live in Oregon, hit the subscribe button and tap the bell. That way you'll be notified every time we drop a new video, which is every week. And if you're somebody that's thinking about moving to Oregon or anywhere in the Portland metropolitan area, as real estate brokers, as much as we like making these videos, we'd love to help you move here. So if you want to take the next step, you can call us, text us, email us, or click the link below in the description if you want to get into our calendar and schedule a Zoom call with us. Typically best for people coming from outside of the state. All right, let's jump into pros and cons of Canby, Oregon. And I want to give you some things that I think you might not read online, some things that you might not be able to infer just from some of the data and the information that's online, or maybe from some people that have made some similar videos. One thing you might not find online about Canby is their downtown, I think, is probably going to be more walkable, and you're probably going to find more housing around their downtown than probably any of the other surrounding towns. So I'm talking about Oregon City, West Linn, Tualatin, Wilsonville, Milwaukee, even Happy Valley. Any towns that are sort of close to Canby, if you're comparing Canby to some of those other towns and you like something that's walkable, you're probably going to find more housing around downtown Canby than any of these other towns. Canby has a pretty big grid style layout to the downtown, and a lot of other towns a lot of the other bigger towns surrounding Canby, like a West Linn, for example, are a little bit more discombobulated, for lack of a better word. You can see our West Linn vlog tour there. So things are spread out and not quite as walkable in some of the other towns in the Clackamas County area. Canby really has this feel like everything was developed around the downtown, and then kind of the surrounding, like the perimeter, that's where you're going to find all of your farmland. Canby was primarily a farming community that's over time turned into really a dense suburban type of community. So if you want something that's going to be walkable, and Canby does have a great little downtown, Canby might be one of the best spots for you. And being that Canby was sort of a cozy, quaint, originally farming community, and it still is largely a farming community, you get a lot of really small sort of hometown vibes from Canby. So the community here is great. The people here are great. Type of place where you walk by in the street and somebody will say hi or wave to you. You know, not so much the case like in a downtown Portland. I'm sure that's not the case in a lot of densely populated major metropolitan areas, but if you're looking for a place where the people are friendly, where people look you in the eye and smile when they walk by, Canby is definitely going to be one of those places. So the people here for sure are pro. Next pro for Canby is going to be the affordability. Now again, comparing some of the other neighboring towns like in Oregon City, like a West Linn across the river, Canby is going to be largely more affordable, like a Wilsonville or a Tualatin. It's not going to be a huge difference, but you will find that housing is a little bit less here, probably because of the proximity. It doesn't have the same proximity to Portland that some of those other towns have, so it is a little bit farther out there. And if you're somebody that, you know, it's going to be all relative too. If you're somebody that's coming from outside of the state, depending on where you come from, Oregon is one of the more expensive states to live in the United States. So if you're coming from like the Midwest, housing might very well be a lot more expensive here than where you're coming from. If you're coming from somewhere in the state or somewhere where housing's already expensive, you might find Canby to be even more affordable than where you're coming from. But for sure, it's going to be a little less expensive than a lot of the other bigger surrounding towns. You do have smaller surrounding towns to the south and southwest of you. That's really where it starts to get rural, and that's really we're really kind of on the edge right now of the Portland metropolitan area. We're nowhere near the county lines for Clackamas County. We're quite a ways away actually from the southern or easternmost lines of Clackamas County, but you're kind of on the edge of what people would consider like that Portland metropolitan area. You're about as far as somebody's going to live to make a commute, and I'll talk about the commute towards the end of this this video as well and what that looks like, but you're about as far as somebody's typically going to go that's going to be working in Portland. Next pro for Canby, and it's going to be true for a lot of surrounding towns around Canby, but the crime here is very low. This wasn't something that was as high on the radar or something that maybe people inquired about or asked about as much, but these days, people that are moving to Portland, Oregon, and all the things that you see on the news, crime is something that people bring up quite a bit. It's maybe something that people didn't worry about as much a couple years ago, but regardless of what news channel that you watch, you've probably heard something about crime in Portland, and so we get asked about that a lot as well. A lot of people coming here, moving from outside of the state, are concerned about it, and so they end up looking a little bit farther out in the suburbs. Canby is one of those places that's very, very safe, very low crime. And for that reason, I think, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, the Canby's a little flying under the radar a little bit, but I think that's going to change in the coming years. Oregon is a migratory state. There's more people that move here than move out of the state, and that's been true, of course, for Portland, which is our largest metropolitan area in the state of Oregon. And that's always been true with the exception of last year. It actually ticked down just a tiny bit, just 0.1%, but Portland did lose 0.1% of its population, and that's just people moving from the city to the suburbs. Probably not just for crime. We do have work from home now, right? So people are maybe looking out towards the suburbs towards a little bit more space where you can get an office or an extra bedroom that you can use as an office. So of course that's one reason as well, but that's a trend that we expect to continue to see in the coming years. Another big pro with Canby is you have the Canby Swim Center. In Oregon, pools are not very common. They're pretty few and far between, whether it's just a community pool or if you're looking for a home that has a pool. There's not a lot of houses that have pools in Oregon, and especially in the Portland metropolitan area. So having a town that has a pool that you can have access to, especially if you want to get the kids in swim lessons, which is always kind of the big thing around the Portland metro area. It seems like there's not enough people that are offering swim lessons. Those swim lessons always book up really fast around here. There's some people that have attempted to offer swim lessons from their home, from their primary residence. That typically doesn't work out too well. Using something that's zoned residentially for a commercial purpose oftentimes ends up showing up on the radar of the city if you do something like that. So people running swim lessons out of their house hasn't worked out too well. So you're really kind of just left to whatever pools there are in the Portland metropolitan area, and there aren't a ton of them. So having one in Canby is something that people that live here really enjoy. Big pro for Canby, which is going to be true for probably a lot of other towns that you might be looking at that are surrounding Canby, but great schools here. You only have one high school, but all the schools, the middle schools, the primary schools, all the schools here are rated above average. And again, if you're looking at online about school rankings, it's going to be really hit or miss depending on the website that you look at. So a lot of stuff is kind of anecdotal, but a lot of the people that I know that have gone through the school system here or have kids in the school system here really like it. Another big pro for Canby, having a great community also oftentimes translates into having great events. The events around here are really good. People really love the 4th of July celebration that they have. They do have, as you might expect, sort of in a farming community, probably one of the better farmers markets in this area. And there's a lot of other little events which take place downtown. A lot of events take place downtown. You do also have the Clackamas County Fair here. I don't know if that's a pro or a con. I guess that depends on who you ask. I'm sure there's some people that live around here that don't love all the congestion around that time because it does draw a lot of people in here. This past year wasn't super busy when I went. Felt like it was maybe a little bit slower the past couple years. Might have been, due to the pandemic and everything kind of being slower just in general, but usually it's a pretty big draw, and so there's a fair amount of congestion here. So whether that's a pro or a con for people that live here, maybe I leave that one up to you, but the county fair is something that a lot of people enjoy, and it's definitely something that if you live here a lot, most people are, or at least stopping by to check out every year for a little bit, especially if you got kids. It's always fun for the kids. Then my last pro for you You're gonna find this in a lot of other surrounding towns, like I said, Tualatin, Westland, Wilsonville, Oregon City, but there's tons of parks here, and there's tons of places to walk around, tons of trails, good places to jog if you're a jogger. You know, Molalla State Park is a great park. Every time I go there, there's almost nobody there, you know, so you've got a lot of great parks around here that don't get a whole lot of traffic. And you've got two rivers here too. So the Molalla State Park is actually right there on the Willamette River, but you do have the Molalla River that it connects with and goes through downtown, or just past downtown Canby as well. So if you're a water person, if you like the outdoors, you've got everything pretty much that you're going to want right in your own backyard. All right, so let's talk about a con. There really aren't too many cons to Canby, and if you ask the people that live here, they probably won't tell you there's really hardly any cons to Canby. But a reason why, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I think Canby flies a little bit under the radar is because a lot of people moving to this area, moving to the Portland metro area, do want to have some proximity to Portland, whether it's for food or events or going to a Blazer game, just going down to the waterfront, whatever it may be. Those things aren't quite as desirable as they were with the higher crime these last few years, but most people want to keep some proximity to Portland, of course, jobs as well too. And Canby is kind of, like I mentioned, right kind of on the border of what is going to be a little bit of a too far of a commute for most people. If you map it on Google, it's going to be maybe just over 30 minutes to get from Canby to downtown Portland. Realistically, you're probably looking about closer to 45 to 60 minutes, depending on traffic. A lot of people from Canby are going to, you actually kind of have to backtrack a little bit when you're going to Portland from Canby for a lot of people. A lot of people are going to be taking I-5, in which you're going to have to go south a little bit, southwest, before you can head north to Portland. You can also get to Portland from Highway 99, which goes through Oregon City and then to Milwaukee. You're going to go through a lot of lights there, but there's not nearly as much congestion. Google Maps says that's about 6-7 minutes slower than taking I-5. I bet if you drove it, it's maybe not that big a difference, especially when there's a lot of traffic. But either way, you're looking at a fairly good commute. So Canby's a little bit out there, right? So 45 minutes to an hour for a lot of people, commuting is a little bit too much. Most people, you typically want to keep their commute within 30 minutes. So I think for that reason, Canby does get overlooked a little bit for people moving to the Portland metropolitan area. It's just maybe a little bit too far, but I think that's going to start to change as we start to see more people moving out to the suburbs. So if you're somebody that's worried about home values, you can definitely feel comfortable and confident that your home will continue to appreciate in Canby. Can't say that about some of the neighborhoods in Portland proper and Multnomah County. You know, hopefully that'll change. Portland is trying to work on their crime problems right now. But as it stands, this is a great town. It's got a lot of amenities. The people that live here really enjoy it. And if you can make it work, it might be the perfect town for you. So if you're thinking about taking the next steps, if you have more questions about Canby or any of the surrounding towns, you can call, text, or email us. Or like I've mentioned, you can schedule a Zoom call with us in the description. And if you want to see more videos about what it's like to live in Oregon and kind of like what the lifestyle is here, make sure and hit the subscribe button, tap the bell. And if this video helped you, give us a thumbs up, give us a like. It lets us know we're doing a good job. Feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions there as well. We always reply to comments and appreciate you commenting and watching. Until next time, take care, everyone.